So let us start. In this state of consciousness.
Okay. In this state of consciousness, the infinite becomes to us the the primal, the actual reality, the one thing immediately and sensibly true. It becomes impossible for us to think of or realize the finite apart from our fundamental sense of the infinite, in which alone the further. Just wait 1 minute. Yes. The finite can live, can form itself, can have any reality or duration. So long as this finite mind and body are to our consciousness the first fact of our existence and the foundations of all our thinking, feeling, and willing, and so long as things finite are the normal reality from which we can rise occasionally or even frequently to an idea and sense of the infinite, we are still very far away from the gnosis. In the plane of the gnosis, the infinite is at once our normal consciousness of being, its first fact, our sensible substance. It is very concretely to us there the foundation from which everything finite forms itself, and its boundless, incalculable forces are the origination of all our thought, will, and delight. But this infinite is not only an infinite of pervasion or of extension in which everything forms and happens. Behind that immeasurable extension, the Gnostic consciousness is always aware of a spaceless inner infinite. It is through this double infinite that we shall arrive at the essential being of Sachidananda, the highest self of our own being and the totality of our cosmic existence. There is open to us an illimitable existence which we feel as if it were an infinity above us to which we attempt to rise, and an infinity around us into which we strive to dissolve our separate existence. Afterwards, we widen into it and rise into it. We break out of the ego into its largeness and are that far ever. If this liberation is achieved, its power can take, if so will, increasing possession of our lower being, also until even our lowest and perverest activities are refashioned into the truth of Vijnana.
Vijnana. Yeah. Okay. In our Indian language, we say Vijnana, Ga. But it is, you have to pronounce it in Sanskrit, Vijnana. Okay. Ja. Okay. So we go back to the beginning of the para. And so in this state of consciousness, what we will see immediately will be clear. The infinite, just 1 second, let me see. Okay. In this state of consciousness, the infinite becomes to us the primal, the actual reality, the one thing immediately and sensibly true. So just understand what he's saying. It's very easy. He's saying that at present, the finite is more real to us than the infinite. We can sort of, in a vague way, we can conceive of the infinite, but it's just an abstract idea. It's not a reality. But when your consciousness goes out of the body-mind life and reaches level 2 of the spiritual planes of consciousness, then the infinite becomes a real thing. And the finite forms start appearing to be very, very hazy and not so real at all. That's what he's saying, okay? The sensibly true, mind you, it becomes sensible. The senses start seeing the infinite as more real than the finite. Just see what he's saying. Sensibly in the sense of open to the senses. Okay. Then he's saying it becomes impossible for us to think of or realize the finite apart from the fundamental sense of the infinite. That becomes a reality, and the forms appear to be very, very small, insignificant forms in this vast one infinite. which is the reality. It's like a vast picture. And if you, there is the French impressionists, okay, the painters, they used to do something called pointillism. In other words, they used to make a picture by just putting dots of color into a picture. Okay, so you see the whole picture, but it's made up of dots. So if you are in the normal consciousness of man, you will see the dots. But if you are in the infinite consciousness, you will see the whole picture, and the dots are only incidental. They are just small dots in this picture. It was, I think, his name was Pissarro, Henri Pissarro. Henri, I don't remember, but Pissarro was the artist who used this technique. Pointillism, just with points of color, he used to make a painting. Okay. You can go to the internet and check. So that's what he's simply saying, that the infinite background, the total picture becomes a reality, and all the forms in the physical world are just small, insignificant and unimportant small dots. That's what he's saying. Okay. It becomes impossible for us to think of or realize the finite apart from this fundamental sense of the infinite. That becomes more real to us, in which alone the finite can live, can form itself, can have any reality or duration. So the forms are temporary, transient forms, and it is possible to have these forms only because the infinite is there. It's somewhat like, because there's a huge amount of clay available, that the pots and pans can come into existence. If the pots and pans don't have the clay, how can they come into existence? And the clay is the infinite, and all the finite forms are the pots and pans. That's what he's saying. Okay, impossible for us to think of. Impossible, mind you. It's total reversal of consciousness. The other day, Yasmin was asking about reversal of consciousness. This is the thing. At our level, the finite forms are absolutely real to us, and the infinite is something vague. We can imagine, but even our imagination boggles at the infinity. But when you are in this second level, level 2 of the spiritual planes of consciousness, the infinite becomes more real to you than the finite. That's what he's saying. And senses, okay, with senses. Then I go to the next sentence. And he's saying, the finite alone can live, can form itself, can have any reality or duration at all, because the infinite is there. So long as this finite mind and body are to our consciousness the first fact of our existence and the foundation of all our thinking, feeling and willing, and so long as things finite are the normal reality from which we can rise occasionally or even frequently to an idea and sense of the infinite, we are still very far away from the gnosis. So long as the finite forms appear real to you, you are in the ignorance. Very clear. So his definition of ignorance, we keep repeating, when you see the multiplicity, the forms, and think that they are real, you are in level 1 of the ignorance. Very, very clear. Okay, that's what he's saying in this pretty long sentence. I repeat the sentence. Now you see it that way. So long as this finite mind, our normal mortal mind of man, which is not spiritual but normal mind, and body are to our consciousness the first fact of our existence. That's the most important. And the foundation of all our thinking, feeling and willing. And so long as things finite are the normal reality from which we can rise occasionally or even frequently, even if you have spiritual experiences, and you come down and the world is real to you, then you are in ignorance. To an idea and sense of the infinite, we are still very far away from the gnosis. Even if you are in a spiritual consciousness, you are very far away from the supramental. In the plane of the gnosis, the infinite is at once our normal consciousness of being, its first fact, our sensible substance. Note the word substance, sensible substance. It may be subtle, but that is more real to you than the physical forms. Okay, this is the one of the laws, that the higher you go, the subtler becomes more concrete. We'll use the word concrete later on in the paragraph. Okay, it becomes more concrete. It's so funny, na? The subtler it is, the more concrete it is to you. Okay, so sensible. It is very concretely to us there, that means in the supermind, the foundation from which everything finite forms itself, and its boundless, incalculable forces are the origination of all our thought, will, and delight. Because the supermind is there with its sense of infinity, the finite is possible. That's what it's saying. Okay? But this infinite is not only an infinite of pervasion or of extension in which everything forms and happens. Now, look carefully and try to understand what he's saying. But this infinite is not only an infinite of pervasion or of extension. Now tell me, what's the difference between pervasion and extension? Pervasion, you are pervading into forms, and that's the individual divine. Extension, it is not going into anything, but it's only extending itself, the cosmic. Okay, see how he uses his words. Very interesting. That is the reason why we must understand Sri use of words is so accurate. Pervasion, individual divine. Extension, cosmic divine. Okay, so in which everything forms and happens. Behind that immeasurable extension, immeasurable is the cosmos. The Gnostic consciousness is always aware of a spaceless inner infinite. So even if your consciousness has gone to the supermind, you are aware that the cosmos is there. You are aware also of the cosmos, but behind the cosmos, you will see that the supermind is there, hiding behind the cosmos. It is very concrete to us there, the foundation from which everything finite forms itself, and its boundless, incalculable forces are the origination of all our thought, will, and delight. Now, interestingly, see again how he goes on repeating: thought, will, and delight. Thought, chit; will, shakti; delight, ananda. Okay. So, constantly referring back to the ultimate reality, Satchidananda. Throughout his texts, everywhere. But this, you remember that mantra also? In the night as in the day, there also you will see the same thing. In the night, this was a message to Champaklal on his birthday. In the night as in the day, be always with me. In sleep as in waking, let me feel in me always the reality of your presence. Let it sustain and make to grow in me truth, consciousness, and bliss. Always and at all times. This is a message to Champaklal. It is a mantra, it's a message, but also a mantra. So truth, Sat, consciousness, Chit, truth, consciousness, and bliss, Ananda. So constantly it keeps harping back to the Satchidananda. I go to the next sentence. But this infinite is not only an infinite of perversion and extension. So he's using different words, but he's meaning that this supermind is there in every form and also in the universe, in which everything forms and happens. Behind that immeasurable extension, the Gnostic consciousness is always aware of a spaceless inner infinite. Note, it's inner infinite. Okay? There is an outer space, but there is also an inner space. That's the reality. It is through this double infinite that we shall arrive at the essential being of Satchidananda. What is the double infinite? The inner infinite and the physical infinite. The universe as well as your psychological infinite within yourself. You will feel both to be real. We shall arrive at the essential being of Satchidananda, the highest self of our being and the totality of our cosmic existence. So, again, look at the sentence carefully. He is saying, you remember, in level 1, the world is real to us. In level 2, the world is unreal to us. But the Brahman is real to us. In the third level, both the Brahman, the spirit, as well as the world is real to you. So he is repeating that in different words. He is saying it is through this double infinite, okay, the the spirit being infinite and the world being infinite, that we shall arrive at the essential being of Satchidananda, the highest self of our own being and the totality of our cosmic existence. So, highest self of our own being, internal, the divine within you, and the totality of cosmic existence, the cosmic. So, if you are at the third level, you will achieve both transcendent, cosmic, and individual. That's what he's saying. He uses different words, but the same idea keeps coming again and again. There is open to us an illimitable existence, which we feel as if it were an infinity above us. So if it is above us, it's a transcendent, which we attempt to rise, and an infinity around us is the cosmos, into which we strive to dissolve our separate existence. Afterwards, we widen into it and we rise into it. So widening into it is the cosmos and rising into it is the supermind. Level 1, level 2, level 3. Okay, that's why I keep saying level 1, level 2, level 3. It becomes immediately understandable when you break out of the ego level 1 into its, we widen into it, widen cosmic consciousness, level 2, and rise into it, level 3. Okay? We break out of the ego into its largeness and are that forever. If this liberation is achieved, its power can take. If so, we will. Because the ascetic does not will. Okay? Its power can take, if so, we will. Increasing possession of our lower being, body, mind, life, lower being, also until even the lowest and perversest activities are refashioned into the truth of the Vijnana. Okay? The perversest actions, remember, cruelty, take cruelty, okay, and suffering. Cruelty is really nothing but kindness which has got perverted. So it is a superficial aspect of the kindness. And if you take the evil, it is nothing but the distortion, and the distortion because of your senses, limited senses. It's a distortion of that which is good. So when you go to the Vijnana, that which appeared to be evil starts taking on another color, and it only becomes an aspect of the truth, of the good. That's what he's saying. Okay? So, very interesting para. We went into each word, and each word has got a meaning. We must locate it exactly where he's saying. All right? So, now we go to the next para. We have time. And today, Yasmin with her, why is your throat becoming so often bad? Yasmin, take care of your throat.
Pollution in Bombay.
You are an eye surgeon, but you need to go to a, what is it called? Ear, nose, throat specialist.
Pollution in Bombay.
Yeah. Throat is really bad. Okay, we read the next one.
I can read
you
from that.
can read. Yeah, Archana,
Yes, I do.
go ahead.
This
This
is
is the basis.
the basis. This is the basis. I have the SABCL, so maybe some variations might be there.
Doesn't matter.
This is the basis. This sense of the infinite and possession by the infinite, and only when it is achieved can we progress towards some normality of the supramental ideation, perception, sense, identity, awareness. For even this sense of the infinite is only a first foundation, and much more has to be done before the consciousness can become dynamically Gnostic. For the supramental knowledge is the play of a supreme light. There are many other lights, other levels of knowledge, higher than human mind, which can open in us and receive or reflect something of that effulgence even before we rise into the gnosis. But to command or wholly possess it, we must first enter into and become the being of the supreme light. Our consciousness must be transformed into that consciousness, its principle and power of self awareness and all awareness by identity, must be the very stuff of our existence. For our means and ways of knowledge and action must necessarily be according to the nature of our consciousness, and it is the consciousness that must radically change if we are to command and not only be occasionally visited by that higher power of knowledge. But it is not confined to a higher thought or the action of a sort of divine reason. It takes up all our present means of knowledge, immensely extended, active, and effective, where they are now debarred, blind, infectious, and turns them into a high and intense perceptive activity of the Vijnana. Thus, it takes up our sense action and illumines it even in its ordinary field, so that we get a true sense of things. But also, it enables the mind sense to have a direct perception of the inner as well as the outer phenomena, to feel and receive or perceive, for instance, the thoughts, feelings, sensations, the nervous reactions of the object on which it is turned. There is a footnote. This power, says Patanjali, comes by Sanyam as an object. That is, for the mentality in the gnosis, there is no need of Sanyam. For this kind of perception is the natural action of the Vijnana. It uses the subtle senses as well as the physical and saves them from their errors. It gives us the knowledge, the experience of planes of existence other than the material to which our ordinary mentality is ignorantly attached, and it enlarges the world for us. It transforms similarly the sensations and gives them their full intensity as well as their full holding power. For in our normal mentality, the full intensity is impossible because the power to hold and sustain vibrations beyond a certain point is denied to it. Mind and body would both break under the shock or the prolonged strain. It takes up too the element of knowledge in our feelings and emotions. For our feelings to contain a power of knowledge and a power of effectuation, which we do not recognize and do not properly develop, and delivers them at the same time from their limitations and from their errors and perversions. For in all things, the gnosis is the truth, the right, the highest law. Devanam adabadhani ratani.
Okay, so let's go back to the beginning of the para and see what he is saying. Okay. This is the basis. What is the basis? You have to rise to the supermind, and in that case, you have the experience of the transcendent, the cosmic, as well as the individual. This is the basis. The sense of the infinite and possession by the infinite. The infinite possesses you altogether. Okay? And only when it is achieved can we progress towards some normality of the supramental ideation, perception, sense, identity, awareness. So he is using all these words one by one if you see. First of all, the ideation, then the perception, then the sense, then the identity and the awareness. So actually what he's talking of here is implying that the supermind has got 3 levels. Okay. He says the triple status of the supermind, he has dealt with it in the life divine. First of all, there is the ideation. There is the, this is what I'm going to create. Okay. But it is still an idea. It's a blueprint. It is not yet the reality. Then the second is the perception. Okay. Then you start perceiving what you have thought you will do. Okay. Then it becomes sense. It becomes more concrete to you. And then the identity also comes because all the forms are coming into the way. Then you become aware of the forms also and not only the infinite. So this is the gradation that he's talking about. If you think of creating anything in the physical world, it's exactly the same process. Okay. First of all, I want to build a building. So I make a blueprint. It is not in the building, it's a blueprint. Okay. It's an ideation. It's an idea. Then you put it onto paper. That's the next step. What is there in the mind, you put onto paper. Okay. Then it becomes, now you perceive what you want to do. Then you actually start building it. Then it becomes sensible. And then you can identify the form that you are aware. And you become aware of the, finally the awareness is building. So this is the what he is saying. He is using each word and we must see what he is saying. He repeats this idea in other places in this way. He says, when the divine wants to create the world, first of all, he decides what he is going to do. He makes a blueprint. Then he executes it. Okay? He starts executing it in the cosmos. First in the supermind, only the blueprint. No forms yet. Only the ideas are there in seed form. Then it comes down to the cosmos. He has started executing it. Then the cosmos starts making the forms. Your body is from matter, your vital is from the pranic plane, and your mind also is from the mind plane of the cosmos. So this is a three verse. So first he says ideation, second execution, and third the governance. He uses the word governance there. In other words, he first plans the thing, then he executes it, and then he governs it. In other words, he comes into every form and he's present there. He is governing the universe and the forms. So he is using the same thing here in different words, in a very flexible manner. First of all, the ideation in the triple status of the supermind. Okay, that's what is being reflected here. So, to put it more graphically, the triple status of the supermind is this. First of all, there is the ocean. Absolutely calm, quiet, no forms at all, no waves. Pure, infinite, eternal, absolutely static. That's the ideation. Okay, everything is there in seed form, but no forms have come yet. Second status of supermind, where he's saying perception, the waves start forming, but they are not waves yet. They are only swellings. Okay, they are swellings. And the third level of supermind, the waves have started forming. And if the individual experiences these planes, first of all, he will feel that he is in the infinite consciousness. Then when the individual realizes the second status of consciousness, he will start seeing his own individuality, which is the beginning of the wave. But the sea is more important than the individuality. You are more aware of the infinity than your own form. And in the third level, the form is beginning to become more aware of itself than the sea. In other words, you are quite aware that you are experiencing the infinite. So this is what he's saying. I put it in different words because the same idea occurs in different places with different words. Okay. So level 1, total static condition. The sea is absolutely calm. Level 2, the sea is beginning to create, to make waves. And the waves are the forms, the infinite forms. So they are only swellings. They are not yet you have seen the sea, na? It swells and starts moving towards the shore. So that's not yet the wave, it's only a swelling. And the third level, the wave has formed. And if the individual, as I said, experiences these three, first he will be aware only of the sea, the infinite. He is not aware of his own individuality. The individuality has become the sea. You are aware only of the sea and not your own individuality. The second one, you are aware of your individuality. Oh, I am experiencing this infinite. Okay, some sort of perception of your individuality is there, but the sea is more important. At the third level, the individual starts becoming quite aware that he is an individual experiencing the sea. Okay, so that's what he's saying. I go to the next sentence. For even this sense of the infinite is only a first foundation, and much more has to be done before the consciousness can become dynamically Gnostic. So when you are in the spiritual planes of consciousness level 2, some reflection, he'll tell you later on in this paragraph, some reflection of the supermind can be accessed. Okay, you can get some reflection of it. But still, lot remains to be done. That's what he's saying. For even the sense of the infinite is only a first foundation. This level 2 of the spiritual planes is only a first foundation. And much more has to be done before the consciousness can become dynamically Gnostic. In other words, in level 2, you may not have the power to change your lower nature. You may have a little bit, but not dynamically Gnostic. Complete power is not there. The supramental knowledge is a play of the supreme light. Okay? Now, note carefully. Supreme light, light at its highest, is a supermind. But there are many other lights, other levels of knowledge higher than the human mind, which can open in us and receive or reflect something of that effulgence even before we rise into the gnosis. So, in other words, he's saying that even in level 2, where the spiritual planes of consciousness, you can receive or reflect. Now, see the difference between the two words. Okay? You are receiving means it is entering into you and it will become part of you. Okay? And reflecting, you are only reflecting, it's not gone into you. You are aware of the reflection. So this also is very possible that you can be open in the spiritual planes of consciousness, you can be open to the divine influences, love, power, also to a certain extent, and ananda. All these things can come into you. But it can either enter into you or just remain on the surface, receive or reflect something of that effulgence, even before we rise into the gnosis. In other words, touches of the supermind can be there in the level 2 of the spiritual planes of consciousness. But to command or wholly possess it, we must enter first into and become the being of the supreme light. Now, what is the being of the supreme light? Your substance of consciousness must become the substance of that supreme light. The light is a substance, huh? In fact, even science says that light is particles and waves both. It's a particles. Okay, so it's a substance, and your substance, which is impure, has to rise to that level and become pure and become that substance. It's like a glass of muddy water. It has to become clean water. Okay, that's what he's saying. Muddy water is at our level. It's very muddy water. Okay, is a substance. Our consciousness is full of all impurities. But as you go to the second level, much of the impurity is gone, and you start receiving or reflecting the reality. And at the third level, your substance becomes absolutely transparent, pure, and supreme light. It becomes light, not any touch of darkness. Okay. In fact, there are many places where Mother also speaks of it, and also Srila speaks of it. Light without darkness. So there is a condition where there is light with a little darkness, level 2. But at the highest level, light without darkness. Lumière sans obscurité. She also uses the word sometimes. So we have to understand that, okay? Because there are grades. Okay, so there are many other lights. In fact, many other lights, Srila says, Srila own light is blue, Mother's own light is white. Then there are even lights at the lower levels. Okay? The vital also there are lights. Okay, and that can misguide you like anything. Okay, and these lights in the vital are very, very deceptive. We have to be very, very careful. He says that in the letters. Okay. But to command, wait, our consciousness transforms the experience. But to command or wholly, where is it? But to command or wholly possess, we must first enter and become the supreme light. Our consciousness will be transformed into that consciousness, its principle and power of self-awareness, and all awareness by identity must be the very stuff of our existence. Note the word stuff. He's talking about substance again. The word stuff is very clear. It is a material. It's a stuff. It's a substance. Okay. So, but to command or wholly possess it, that can come only at the supramental level. You have full power. We must enter first into and become the being of the supreme light. Here's the substance. Our consciousness must be transformed into that consciousness. Our dirty consciousness or semi-dirty consciousness must become the pure, transparent consciousness of the supermind. Its principle and power of self-awareness and all awareness. What does that mean? You are aware of yourself and you are also aware of the cosmos. Okay? Self-awareness and all awareness. Self-awareness, your own self. All awareness, cosmic, by identity. must be the very stuff of our existence. For our means and ways of knowledge and action must necessarily be according to the nature of our consciousness, and it is a consciousness that must radically change if we are to command and not only be occasionally visited by that higher power of knowledge. But even the occasional visits are the experiences that you have that will change you, but not enough. That's what Sadhguru is saying. Most yogis, some yogis have only experiences and they remember. But many yogis can station themselves completely at level 2, and that's a great achievement. But Lord Srivanda wants you to go right to the 3rd level, the most difficult of all. But it is not confined to the higher thought or the action of a sort of divine reason. The supramental action is not confined only to the spiritual level. It comes down to the level 1. It takes up all our present means of knowledge, immensely extended, active, and effective, where they are now debarred. The supreme light cannot come down to us at level 1. It is debarred, it's not allowed. It is blind, infructuous. The word infructuous means not fruitful. Okay? In fruit, from the word it comes from fruit. Infructuous, it cannot bear fruit, not fruitful. That's what it means. And turns them into a high and intense perceptive activity of the vijnana. My note is saying that the word infructuous is used only in India. They don't use it elsewhere. And turns them into a high and intense perceptive activity of the vijnana. So your light must become that supreme light if you want full power. That's what he's saying. Thus, it takes up, it is what? The supermind. It takes up our sense action. The sense is the sight, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touch, and illumines it even in its ordinary field, so that ordinary field at a physical level. Okay. Very clear. What it means by ordinary field is physical level. So that we get a true sense of things. At present, our senses are showing us only the outer form, but in the supramental, our senses also become supramentalized and we start seeing the reality of every form. That's what he's saying. But this true sense of things. But also, it enables the mind sense to have a direct perception of the inner as well as the outer phenomenon. We see the outer form and we see the inner reality of every form. To feel and receive or perceive, for instance, the thoughts, feelings, sensations, the nervous reactions of the object on which it is turned. Okay, this is very interesting. That footnote we will see. But what's he saying? He's saying that it also enables the mind sense to have a mind sense is the manas, okay, the physical mind, to have a direct perception of the inner as well as the outer phenomenon. I can see he's talking of thoughts, feelings, and sensations and nervous of the object, and the object can be also a human being. But human being is much easier to see feelings and thoughts. But he's talking even of the inanimate things, object he's saying. Okay, you start realizing, you start seeing the form as well as the inner condition of the form. So if I'm seeing somebody, I know what he's thinking, I know what his emotions are. That's what Sadhguru is saying. But also it enables the mind sense to have a direct perception of the inner as well as the outer phenomenon. Now, see the gradation again. First of all, you only feel. Secondly, you receive or perceive. Okay? So first you have a vague feeling. If you are not sufficiently developed there, you have a feeling that, oh, this man is, okay, he's being very friendly to me, or he's not being so friendly to me. You feel it roughly, but you receive. You can see his love or his hate. You can see it. You receive it or perceive. Okay, clearly, see or receive. Again, there is a difference between the two. Receiving is actually entering into you, and perceiving is not entering into you, but you see the reality. Each word is so clearly, so they're using in great equity, okay, with great precision and perception both. For instance, the thoughts and feelings and sensations and nervous reactions of the object on which it is done. Now note very interestingly, he's saying the nervous reactions of the object. Okay, even the inanimate objects have reactions, nervous reactions. Okay, because I'm going a little more into detail. I'm using my watch, right? Now, many of my feelings will go into the watch. You may find it very funny, but it's true. Because my feelings and my thoughts and the essential, they go into my watch, and somebody who touches my watch will be able to contact me. Okay, that's what Swami is saying so clearly. The nervous reaction of the object on which it is turned. Now we go to the footnote. This power, says Patanjali, comes by samyama. Samyama, okay, concentration of mind. That's what it means here. Samyama, okay, the concentration of mind on an object. That is for the mentality. In the gnosis, there is no need of samyama. For this kind of perception is the natural action of the vijnana. Samyama is obviously at level 2. Okay? You concentrate and you come to know. That's what he's saying. I come back to the main text. Yeah, it uses the subtle senses. We've got 2 minutes. I'll finish the paragraph. It uses the subtle senses. So we know that, na? That there are gross senses and there are subtle senses. Subtle sense, I can see without eyes. I can hear without ears. That's what happens when you're dreaming. When you're dreaming, you're seeing things, but you're not using your eyes. So that is subtle sense. And also subtle hearing. You're hearing, when you have a dream, you're talking to somebody, you hear that, but it is subtle sense. As well as the physical, and saves them from all their errors. I just mentioned something very interesting, okay? Subtle senses. Srivastava has written that poem, Invitation, if you remember. He wrote it in jail, or rather he conceived it in jail, and afterwards he wrote it out. And he said, with the wind and the weather beating around me, up to the hill and the moorland I go. He said, who will climb with me? Who will, I've forgotten the exact words, but who will climb? Who will go with me? Up to the hill and the moorland I go. That's what he's saying. And he says, with the wind and the weather beating around me, he says it was real. At a subtle level. Okay. So it was. At a subtle level it was. It was beating around him when he was going up. Okay. So that's what he's saying. These subtle senses can realize the subtle forces. Okay. So it uses the subtle senses as well as the physical and saves them from their errors. It gives us the knowledge, the experience of planes of existence other than the material, to which our ordinary mentality is ignorantly attached, and it enlarges the world for us. Our understanding becomes much, much larger. It transforms similarly the sensations and gives them their full intensity as well as their full holding power. I read an experience of an Australian who had come to Malaysia, and he had written something very interesting. Actually, strangely enough, he had taken drugs, okay? And he entered into a consciousness which is quite different. Now, the drugs can give you a bad experience, but sometimes it can give you a good experience also. So this man, he said that his senses become acutely intensified. In other words, our eyes are seeing colors, but he said that I started seeing the colors in a tremendously intensified manner. What I'm seeing red, he's saying is tremendously red, tremendously blue. All the colors became intensely lighted up. Okay, so that's what Srivastava is saying, full intensity. See, each word that Srivastava says, if you have read enough, okay, you'll know that, oh my God, somebody has really experienced that. Full intensity, as well as a full holding power. It doesn't come and disappear. It holds. Okay, it's a permanent feeling. But it was, for him, it happened through drugs, but it need not happen through drugs. When you go to that level, it can happen to you without drugs. Drugs can be dangerous, but it can sometimes give you good experience because you are going into another world. Huh? But that is usually a dangerous thing. But I'm mentioning it because he had the experience only through drugs. It is an Australian who had come to Malaysia. I remember that still. The full intensity is impossible because the power to hold and sustain vibrations beyond a certain point is denied to us. Mind and body would both break under the shock of the prolonged strain. So, when you go into the subtler planes of consciousness, your body must have been sufficiently strong. In fact, that's what happened in one case when one man was experiencing the subtler planes. He was entering into the vital planes and getting many interesting experiences. When he told mother about it, mother stopped him because she knew that it's dangerous for him. And he started complaining. Mother has stopped my experiences. He was a man called Arunda. He was a lifeguard in the tennis ground. He used to be there when people are swimming in the sea. So he used to complain. We used to call him Arun Teko. So he started complaining. Mother has taken away my experience. She actually protected him. Okay. Now, prolonged strain, it can break. The body can break under the shock of the and prolonged strain. When that happens, you lose your your sense of you lose your balance, and they have to often to be sent away. Okay, so it takes up to the element of knowledge in feelings and emotions. For our feelings too contain a power of knowledge and a power of effectuation which we do not recognize and do not properly develop. What he's saying is your emotion can have a power of effectuation. If your love is pure, it can have physical effect. That's what he's saying, power of effectuation. If your knowledge is also pure, it can become a reality. But we don't realize that and we don't develop it. That's what he's saying. And delivers them at the same time from their limitations and from their errors and perversions. For in all things, the gnosis is the truth. The gnosis, supermind. It's the truth, the right, the highest law. Devanam adabdhani pratani. The right, the truth, the right, and the law. Satyam ritam brihat. That's what it is. So, I've gone quite a lot, 4 minutes beyond the time, so I stop here. So, key, note down, knowledge and force or will. That's what we're going to read next.
Yes.
Okay.